If you saw something scuttling beneath my skull, you would be deeply disgusted, and you would be well within your right to assume that I'm either cursed, possessed, or otherwise very, very sick. But brain parasites are rarely that obvious. These are the creatures, metaphorically speaking, that scuttle beneath our skulls and eat away at our moral goodness and progressively, piece by piece, turn us into slaves of ideas which truly do not do us any good. And today's video is my expansion on this recent comment about the question of evil, with a specific focus on the ways that we cause evil to ourselves. It's something that we often miss when we're discussing the topic of evil, because if I would say to you right now, for example, who's the most evil person in human history, you're very likely to name either a German, Russian, or Chinese dictator whose actions led to the deaths of millions and great global consequence, or anyone who's on that hierarchy of maliciousness, maybe a murderer or a thug or some horrible, horrible person. But that would be too easy a way out of the philosophical swamp of actually confronting your own morality. It's a question which is going to be right in the center of a shadow work course I'm now starting to work on, and the question very much at the center of my last few weeks, because I'm in the middle of a 3-week holiday, the first holiday I've taken in 3 years. I'm still very much here, but I'm not online. And I've been reading the Bible. I've read the Bible cover to cover for the first time in my life last week, and today, interestingly, in terms of synchronicity, this book just arrived. It's a Quran. I haven't converted to Islam. I haven't converted proper to Christianity. Interestingly that I say the word convert proper to Christianity, because I'm definitely quite heavily influenced by some of these ideas, especially the Sermon on the Mount, which I'm going to bring through as a little entry point in today's conversation. Disclaimer, if you're not religious or you've got religious trauma, just take this as a mental exercise. You don't need to be completely bought into a culture to take the philosophical truth and be able to work it through in a really practical way. But there's a particular section of the Sermon on the Mount which is so important for this question of evil and how we can stop harming ourselves and what it means to be good, like to actually stretch that goodness out throughout our entire personality and our entire being. So, Bible, here it is. Here's my nice hardcover, and this is from the Matthew Gospel. Quote from Sermon on the Mount. This is when Jesus is, giving a quite impactful talk, one of the most important talks in all of recorded history, some would say. Anyway, Sermon on the Mount. If your right eye makes you stumble and leads you to sin, tear it out and throw it away. For it is better for you to lose one of the parts of your body than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. If your right hand makes you stumble and leads you to sin, cut it off and throw it away, for it is better for you to lose one of the parts of your body than for the whole body to go into hell. It's the same exact point repeated over 2 paragraphs, but the little annotation at the bottom is really where I started to think about this idea of cutting something off to prevent further harm. The annotation at the bottom says, "It should be clear here that Jesus is not advocating mutilating our bodies, but he is using a strong figure of speech to emphasize removing any temptation for evil, whatever the cost." That's the point. The point of my genuine belief, even before reading the Bible. This is something that I've really tried to practice for years. It is truly evil to harm your own flesh. You are not an evil person for having fallen victim to certain ways of thinking. If obviously you're in an active stage of causing serious physical, emotional, or other harm to your body right now, then please get the support that you need. This video is going to be about the subtle ways that we harm ourselves, however. It's not as simple as plucking out our eye or cutting off our hand and not doing the literal thing of objectifying another human being with our gaze or stealing from our neighbor. We don't need to go into the literal biblical idea of good and evil. It's much more of a subtle thing in our modern lives. I've come to notice that my version of causing evil to myself is to tell the lie through my actions. What do I mean by this? I've realized, because my life is so organized in a wonderful way that really benefits me and benefits other people. I have a very enjoyable daily routine. Those little variances where I choose to go one way or choose to go another way, maybe the variance between, oh, it's been 15 minutes on YouTube during my break, and now it's time to go back to work and finish up this video, or let's say meet the client and have the 2-hour client session. The evil action for me at this stage isn't I'm going to go on YouTube for 15 more minutes and then actually I'm going to completely change and go and drink a liter of vodka and then I'm going to go and hurt somebody. That is not what I do. I'm so far removed from that. But my version of evil is going off track to such a degree that I have wasted my time. And because I put such a high priority on how I use my time, and I know that my time, especially in this example of maybe not showing up for a client session or not putting in the effort to prepare a video that will come out on this channel, I've just lied to myself through action. And for me, that's a genuine expansion of philosophical evil. I'm not at the stage where I'm going to be causing harm to other people, but I will be causing harm to other people if I take the comparison metric of the good that I could have otherwise brought forwards. This is a very tricky topic to speak into, especially if you've got perfectionistic or very strongly critical tendencies towards yourself. If you have a strong inner critic, you might hear me saying that it's evil to waste your time as some kind of old school parental voice of don't take a nap and don't be lazy and get up out of bed and you should really do your homework. That's not what I'm trying to say here. What I'm trying to communicate is that when you have the opening of awareness that you can spend your time and you can spend your days doing so much good, you become so attuned to all of those forking moments where you go one way or the other way, where your certain body part leads you to stumble. Of course, there's sexual connotations there of people spending many years looping around in destructive behaviors, but really the very practical, very subtle, but also arguably one of the most important ways that we can keep ourselves safe from the evil, the brain parasites that are inside of us, is to stop accepting very crappy behaviors that we know are stealing our potential. If you're somebody who watches this channel frequently, then you will know that I'm very much about consistent, patient, repetitive work in a certain direction based on your intentions towards life. And that intentional path is definitely not oriented towards maliciousness and darkness and bringing evil into the world. It's evil to go off path because evil and sin tie together. Sin is the archery term for missing the mark, and it's not that you are necessarily aiming towards the forest, you were still aiming towards the good target, but you missed. It was a little evil action. It was a little bit too long on the phone. It was a little bit too much food. It was a little bit too long without going to the gym. Of course, it's not righteous, demonic evil, and I hope it's obvious I'm really not saying that you need to cut out every behavior that isn't entirely productive. But there's a certain moment, let me pause and try and get into this. There's a certain moment when you're sat at your desk, or you're in between activities, or it's that particular moment where activity A ended and activity B is about to begin. And you know that it would be the best possible thing for you to do, but you go towards activity C and activity B never even starts. It just disappears into the day. And evil, if you stretch that out over the course of a lifetime, is not lowercase a and lowercase b. It's the big letter B that never came to life. And letter B in this case, I guess, is literally to be the thing that you want to be. I didn't prepare this, but I guess we are going with the metaphor of to be the thing that you want to be, and you do not become the thing that you want to become if you commit those everyday actions of evil and you let yourself be led astray, because unlike what Jesus is recommending, you do not take your left arm and you don't cut it off so you don't spend more time scrolling on your phone. It's a real twisting of the teaching in some ways, but I think it's the most applicable and most important truth that we really need to grasp. It's evil to cause harm to your body when you're drinking and drugging and doing all kinds of malicious things to your flesh, but it's a certain type of subtle and very parasitic evil to waste your time and to spend your thoughts and your limited energy paying attention to things which aren't worth paying attention to. It's evil. It's truly evil because it's misguided. I've looked at many definitions of evil. I'm making a shadow work course right now. It's going to take me 5.5 more months to get all this together. And the question of evil is an entire module within that course. I'm going to need another 100, 200 hours of study, going back on probably about 20 books on the topic of evil, just to get a proper definition. But for simplicity's sake, it's something like the inversion of good and its life lived backwards. It's to do the opposite of goodness. And in that everyday sense, when you choose to go for the tangential side swipe rather than the actual thing that you're meant to be, you commit a little evil action. I'm not saying that you're an evil person. I'm not saying that I'm an evil person. I don't start beating myself up if I spend way too long on my phone or too long on YouTube or I skip the gym that day. But I do become aware. I become aware that there's a bit of a scratching going on somewhere here, and sometimes it's best to just grab that roach and twist it up and throw it away because it's not yours to begin with. You can only go so far with the metaphor, but if you look all the way back into the psychological literature, some would say that certain parental figures or teachers or friends that we have when we're in childhood, they put their little parasites in your mind and you inherit ideas and they're not yours. But sometimes we live for so long with these little creatures scuttling around in our etheric space that we don't realize that we can actually remove them and we can have a much better way of approaching the world. Is it evil to cause acts of harm to yourself? Yes, but it's a nuanced question. This is the beginning of the conversation, and if you want me to take this in a certain direction, please leave a comment down below. A very specific comment, I will go down that specific route, but otherwise I hope this is at the very least just stirred some thoughts in your mind and maybe given you a reflection of how you could be a little bit less evil to yourself today. Kind of interesting language, but I'll leave it in your hands. You're a smart person and you can definitely do this yourself. Nonetheless, next video, I'm gonna say more words as I keep doing every single week, and they're definitely important ones because I don't do videos that aren't important. And that's the next one. I'll see you over there.